Hate doing cardio? Try brushing and flossing your teeth. I'm not talking about building up a sweat. I'm talking about building a healthier mouth for a healthier heart, for a healthier you. Smile Generation. Trusted dentists look at your care through the lens of the mouth-body connection, because what happens in the mouth plays a critical role for the rest of your body. To find a dentist near you, committed to treating all of you, visit smilegeneration.com/confidence today. And live longer, healthier, and happier with confidence unleashed.
This episode of Trip Tales is presented by The Next Chapter Travel. And let me just say, if you've ever dreamt of going on an unforgettable trip with some friends who happen to love travel as much as you do, this is for you. Picture this. Everything is planned for you. The logistics, handled. The hotel spa appointment, already booked. The wine, poured. You just have to show up. The Next Chapter Travel was created by Martha, a soon-to-be empty nester who decided to take her passion for travel and turn it into small group luxury trips just for women. Think like-minded, adventuresome gals who want to experience the world without cramming onto a tour bus or being rushed through a sightseeing to-do list. Last fall, they did Ireland. This summer, vibrant Portugal. And coming soon, Christmas markets and courts and culture in Italy. Yes, there's even tennis. These trips are designed for rejuvenation, self-care, and connection. Because as Martha says, women spend so much of their lives caring for others, and when that starts to slow down, it's not always easy to turn that care inward. This is your invitation to do just that. So if you're ready for your next chapter filled with connection, culture, and a little luxury, check out Martha's upcoming trips by following along at Instagram at The Next Chapter Travel or by visiting thenextchaptertravel.com. Trip Tales listeners can use code TNCT100 for $100 off at booking. Once again, that's The Next Chapter Travel on Instagram and thenextchaptertravel.com online. Use code TNCT100 for $100 off at booking. You deserve this. Welcome to the Trip Tales podcast with me, Kelsey Graves. Let's jump into a new episode exploring a vacation destination that you'll want all the details about. Hey everyone, welcome back to Trip Tales, the podcast where real people share their real trip stories to give you destination inspiration and practical planning tips. Today we are going to be talking about traveling to Ireland, which I am so excited about because here in Nashville, we recently got a brand new direct flight from Nashville to Dublin via Aer Lingus. There's a lot of excitement here where I live about planning trips to Ireland now that we have access to a direct flight. My guest today, Martha Stockhausen, has ties to Ireland and most recently took a trip there in October 2024. So welcome, Martha. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelsey. I'm really excited to chat today.
I start every episode with a rapid fire get to know you. So tell everyone where you live, what you do, and about your family.
Okay, so I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I've lived here for about 25 years, and I am the founder of the Next Chapter Travel, which is a tour company offering luxury all-women small group tours. And I started this, it's called the Next Chapter because my daughter was in college and my son was in his spring semester of his senior year of high school. And I sort of saw the writing on the wall. I had worked in travel for several years when the kids were younger for a company called Ciao Bambino out of San Francisco. So if you have young kids, and you're wanting to travel, that's a great company. I planned itineraries for families with children, and my kids were similar ages, and we traveled a lot, so it was a great fit. But then as they got older and I wanted to start traveling again, I decided to found a tour company so that I could actually go on the tours. So I have a daughter who's a rising junior and a son who's a rising sophomore in college.
Amazing. Let's dig into this company, The Next Chapter Travel, a little bit more. Tell everyone what types of trips you plan, what people can expect on a trip like yours. I feel like it's a very unique travel company. There's a lot of tour companies out there, but this one has a unique spin.
Yeah, well, I think the small group for sure. I mean, our maximum would probably be 12 or 14. Our last trip was five. I'm leaving for Portugal on Friday, and we have five people going there. I do have 13 coming for a tennis trip in the fall. So, it's small. It's very there's a lot of opportunity for me to customize it. So, we're going to properties that have spas and amazing activities. So I always send that information ahead of time and I book spa, fun activities that people want to do. If there's a certain restaurant people want to go to, I'll make sure to book that. So it's very customized, bespoke, tailored. It's all women, of course, because I'm in my next chapter. My husband didn't love to travel. He likes his idea of a vacation is a beach and near a golf course. And I have studied abroad, lived abroad. I lived in London for 3 years. My father was an Irish citizen. He was born in Ireland. And so I actually have dual citizenship. I lived in Austria for 6 months. So I've just, I'm happiest when I'm on the road. I'm really happy in Europe. It's one of my favorite spots, and I've been to many places there. So I wanted to continue that. And I wanted to take women with me. My mom is in her 80s, and I have seen her, and I really got my love of travel for her. We traveled a lot when I was younger because I'm an only child and she was a single parent. So that was, some of the pros and cons of that, but that was definitely a pro. But I have seen her in her, as she's gotten older, want to take trips. And, one friend has already been, and one friend has to take care of the grandchildren, and one friend doesn't want to spend the money. And so I never wanted to be in that position where there was no one to travel with. I was I'm looking ahead, right? The next 20, 30, 40 years. If I want to go somewhere, I want a travel buddy. And so this is just as much about creating a community of women who are adventuresome and are looking for authenticity and connection, and that kind of thing. So that was sort of the impetus
I
kind of
love
with
it.
that.
And one thing that you told me in a previous conversation we were chatting was that women spend so much of their lives pouring into other people. It's kind
Yes.
of all they do. And then when the tables shift a little bit and you have a little bit more time and a little bit more resources, it's still hard for women sometimes to take that next step and to pour into themselves and say, you know what? I can go on a trip with some friends and pamper myself a little bit after years and years and years of doing this for other people. So something that you also really try to make sure this is a trip of rejuvenation and women are, getting those spa treatments and
Oh,
relaxing. And that is something that I do feel like it's hard for women to say yes to. And it's time. It's time for us to treat ourselves.
1,000%. You are preaching to the choir. And that's, we do forget to take care of ourselves. And when we remember, we feel guilty. I mean, that's the thing. It's so interesting. Some women want to come on a trip and they say, well, I don't know, maybe I should stay home. And meanwhile, their husbands, I mean, no hate, but they've gone on like 7 golf trips this year.
Yeah.
And it's
They're
like,
like, I need to cook for my husband. I'm like, he can drive
yeah,
through somewhere.
yeah,
He can
or the
DoorDash
kids.
something. Yeah.
Yes, we wear so many hats, and I think women just tend not to be great with self-care typically, and a lot of it's societal, a lot of it's how we were raised. And so, yes, this is absolutely about self-care. And so we build in a lot of time for spa treatments and relaxation. And it's like I mean, part of it too is that my kids, I'm a giver, right? It's like as women we are, and it's like there's no one left to nurture in my nest. So, I'm like, let me find some women who need nurturing, right? And I can help them take care of themselves and help them feel pampered and special. And it's just kind of who I am. So,
And that's one of the best parts is that you love that. So you take care of all those details for your guests and your customers. So your inaugural, the next chapter travel trip was to Ireland. And like you said, you have dual citizenship. So Ireland is a special place for you. So tell us a little bit more about why you chose Ireland for this first trip to kick off the next chapter travel.
yes, well, because I have dual citizenship, I've been several times and I was really familiar with the country. But mostly it's because the Irish do hospitality really well. I mean, they are just naturally warm, welcoming, kind-hearted people and who want to help you. And so I just knew that, if I wanted my first trip to go really smoothly and it's a manageable size country, I don't like to spend a lot of time in the car at all. If we're driving from one property to the next, I'll always stop someplace fabulous for lunch or see some sights along the way. It's just I'm not interested in, there are a lot of tour companies that will drive, 8 hours every day, and I'm just not interested in that. So I just love Ireland. As you said, it's a special place in my heart. When my father passed, my husband and I went over and spread his ashes there. So
Aw.
It just seemed like the right place to start.
Yes. Okay, let's get into this trip. So who went and how long was the trip?
Sure. So it was 9 days, and there were actually four of us, two from Charlottesville, two friends that I knew from Charlottesville, and one of my friend's sisters came, who's from Connecticut. Yeah, we flew into Dublin, and three of us flew together, and then her sister met us there.
I was wondering how you do that on these bigger trips. Do you try to make sure everyone lands around the same window? I know that flights can be completely chaotic and some people's can be delayed or canceled, so that part has to be a little tricky. But what's kind of your goal in getting everyone to the country?
Yes, well, I like to include transfers in the price of the trip. I will suggest recommended flights typically out of Dulles because I'm in Charlottesville, and I pick times that are sort of later in the morning or midday. And so if you can either fly to Washington and join us and fly over with us, or if you're flying from somewhere else, then just make sure that your flight arrives at least before ours, preferably. And then when you're departing, depart at our same time or afterwards, just so that we can all be on the same transfer. And having said that, I have two women who I fly out on Friday to Portugal. I got back from California 2 days ago, and I'm flying out to Portugal on Friday to lead a tour. And two of those women, one is coming from California and one's coming from DC, and they are actually flying in a day ahead of time. The woman from California is sort of self-explanatory. The woman from DC was using points, and so she got a better flight, and they're taking care of their own transfers. It's the first hotel is only, I don't know, 20 miles from the airport. And then they're going to spend the night there, and then they'll meet us there the day that we arrive. So, there are lots of possibilities. And I work with everyone to try to help them find what works best for them.
Got it. So in planning this trip, Ireland is so beautiful and there's so many different places to visit. How did you decide what areas and what towns you guys would be visiting when you went over?
I typically plan a trip based on a property that I want to stay in. The luxury piece is huge for me. I like properties that are destinations in and of themselves, that have a lot of amenities, amazing restaurants, Michelin star if possible. And Adare Manor is where we started in Limerick, fit that bill. They had, while we were there, they won Europe's Best Resort for the third year in a row. It was Condé Nast Reader's Choice Award. My husband and I had been in Ireland before, and he had played golf there, and I had had lunch there. So I knew it was a property that I wanted to revisit. The other thing about Ireland is typically it's sort of an oval. So you'll fly into Dublin or Shannon, drive across, and then you'll either do the Southern Horseshoe Loop, or you'll go through Northern Ireland and do the Northern Horseshoe. And so it's just a really common route if you're going to Ireland, whether you fly into Shannon or Dublin, and you can do it forwards or backwards. But I also like to have a really soft landing. So when we arrive at a property, I like for the women to have a day or two for their bodies to catch up. I mean, it's hard, when you go on vacation, it's hard to actually kind of relax into it. And you don't want to feel like you don't want to jump into a bunch of activities or a bunch of sightseeing if your body and mind aren't even caught up with yourself. So Adare Manor has an amazing spa, lots of activities. It's near Adare, which is an adorable little village with thatched cottages. And
I love that it's property driven. That's super fun. And I also loved that a soft landing. I'm going to have to remember that because I've still got younger kids and we plan trips and we're just like, go, go, go. We're headed to the Grand Canyon. But I'm like, I might need a soft landing every once
yeah.
in a while.
I mean, you don't want to come home from your vacation and need a vacation. And this is like,
Exactly.
and it's why I tend to do, two or three cities that are near each other. Again, I'm not going to like Rome and Venice and Florence. It's just way too much travel time.
On this trip, you spent time in, and I hope I say all these right. Correct me if
Sure.
I don't. Adare, Killarney, Kenmare,
Kenmare, Kenmare.
Kenmare, Cork, and Dublin. I've never been to Ireland, and I haven't even heard of some of these spots. So this is going to be exciting to go through each one and discuss why you chose these special spots. But starting with Adare, which I did look up the Adare Manor, and it's unbelievable. Everybody listening, you should just stop what you're doing and look up pictures of the Adare Manor. But first, how did you make your way from Dublin to Adare at the start of your trip?
Yeah, so we always have chauffeured private luxury coaches, a Mercedes Sprinter or Touareg or something similar. And we had a wonderful driver named Tom, and he was just with us the whole way. So we kind of get whisked away from the airport, and then he's with you the whole time. And he happens to be typically we'll have a driver, and then we'll have a separate guide. And we did have some guides at different destinations where we visited, but he was so knowledgeable. We could literally ask him, what happened in Ireland in the 7th century, or what happened at this site, or I mean, he could answer every single question we had, which I loved. And here's another thing about being all women. Our voices were heard. I mean, when you travel with your family, I don't know, my husband is so chatty, and he literally will talk the entire time to whoever's driving, anybody who's around us. And I'll sit there with like 4 questions, and I never get to ask them because, they're just kind of going back and forth. And I just love, like, we all spoke up. We all got to share our opinions, ask questions. It's just, I went to an all girls school growing up, and it just reminded me of that. Women are sort of more empowered when the men aren't around to sort of be their authentic selves and to speak up. And I really liked that.
Well, I hadn't heard of this village before, so I Googled it, and it's a village outside of Limerick. And the very first image to pop up was the most adorable thatched roof cottage I'd ever seen. It looked like something out of a storybook or a fairy tale, like perfectly charming Irish countryside vibes. And then the following photos were like gorgeous castles and manors, including the Adare Manor, which, oh my gosh, this place, you said it's won awards for the best place to stay in Europe. It's the epitome of luxury when you look at the photos. So describe this hotel. Describe showing up there. What is the hotel like pulling up to when you first enter it?
Like most car buyers, you want to get the most for your money. That's why more Mazda buyers choose Ramsey Mazda. Get impressive offers on a new Mazda CX-30 or Mazda CX-5 starting at just $29,276. Over 1,000 new Mazda vehicles to choose from. Visit RamseyMazda.com. Get the most for your money at Ramsey Mazda. Choose wisely. Choose Ramsey Mazda.
So this hotel, when my husband and I visited, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, if not longer, it was definitely in need of a renovation. And in the last, I don't know when they completed the renovation, but probably within the last 5 years, they invested 50 to $100 million in the renovation. So it like is spit shining. I mean, every nook and cranny is gorgeous. Like the outside of the building is beautiful because it's an old building. It was originally built in 1830 by the Earls of Dunraven. So it's a neo-Gothic building. It's called a calendar house, which is really cool. There are all these correlations to a calendar. So there are 365 windows to represent the days of the year. There are 52 chimneys to represent the weeks of the year, 7 pillars for the days of the week, and 4 towers to represent the seasons.
I've
So
never heard of that. That's so cool.
isn't it? I know that's a thing. I mean, there are other calendar houses, I'm sure, in other places, but and they just did it. They spared no expense originally, and then the current owner really has invested a lot of money. And again, you're going to pull up to any 5-star resort in Ireland, and you're going to feel kind of like you're coming home. I mean, they're so warm and they're so welcoming. They make you feel so comfortable. They want to do anything for you, and it's just even in this enormous castle, it feels homey and comfortable
That's awesome.
because of the
Sounds
people.
amazing. So, what did you do with your time in Adare? I'm sure you spent some time at the hotel. I would not want to leave this hotel if I was there, but what did you do at the hotel and around the village?
So the first day, the 2 sisters signed up for falconry. That was, you can go skeet shooting, you can do falconry, you can play tennis, you can play golf. The Ryder Cup is being played there in 2026, so it's going to be really busy next year. Skeet shooting, swimming, all sorts of things. So they did falconry, and they got to fly these little Harris hawks, which I had done before at another property, but they also had these gorgeous owls that they got to hold, and a bald eagle. And the pictures on my website from, if you look under past photos, are pretty amazing because this eagle is huge and he's sort of flapping his wings. But anyway, it was really cool. My other friend and I went on a bike ride. We had spa treatments, massages, great dinners. They actually have a Michelin star restaurant there called the Oak Room, and we ate for 5 hours. I can't even remember how many
Amazing.
courses we had, but there were like little amuse-bouches between each course. Ireland is amazing, by the way. I'm just going to say this with food allergies. It's like a national law that you have to have all of the food allergens listed on the bottom of every menu, which I mean, and they're food allergens that I haven't even heard of. I mean, the list is extensive. So it's really nice. It's funny, I'm a gluten-free pescatarian. So again, I'm all about accommodating. So, if you've got food preferences or allergies or anything, just let me know because I will make sure that all the restaurants know ahead of time. But I'm gluten-free pescatarian, which means I don't eat wheat and I only eat fish. And my roommate was highly allergic to seafood.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
really like she could have died.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so it was great that the hotel is just amazing. That's another reason I like to stay at 5 star. They are going to jump through every hoop and make sure that everything meets your standards, which in a situation like that is really important. We went into the little town of Adare and went shopping. The third day, we went to the Cliffs of Moher, which was a couple hours away, and we did a cliff walk. And it's interesting that, again, I'd been there before, and the cliff walk is built up. So when I was there before, you could literally just sort of walk out on the cliff and sit down in the grass, and I guess hope that you don't fall
Yeah,
off.
don't fall off the cliff. That's how I
Yeah,
felt at the Grand
we thought we
Canyon.
were being so safe, but when we went back this like 10 years later, there's like literally this rock wall with sort of these pointed things at the top to make sure that you don't climb over there and sit on the cliff that we
Oh
sat
wow.
on before. But someone fell off, recently, and so parts of it are even more closed. So I don't know what the accessibility is like, but one of the things I noticed, this is why everyone should go ASAP, is just the differences in the last, I probably went 10 years ago and then maybe 5 years ago, and accessibility like to the cliffs, and then also I'll talk about it later, but the tour for Trinity College in the Book of Kells, the long room has totally changed. So it's just amazing how quickly things change. We went from there to Doolin, which is actually the music capital of Ireland. They joke that if you're born in Doolin, then you're born with an instrument in your hand. Just everyone there is musical. And so we had a little pub lunch and at Gus O'Connor's pub, which is great. And they typically have live music every evening because people will just walk down to the pub and start playing. But we were going to be there at lunchtime. And so I called ahead and I said, we need some musicians because I don't want to take a chance that no one's going to be there. So we hired a couple of musicians. And of course, everyone in the pub loved it. But that was really special. Of course, they took all of our requests and we had
Oh, fun.
everyone on the trip had Irish lineage.
Oh
So
wow.
it was really moving and really special. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. They're like, Martha's here and she's providing the music for the lunch.
Exactly. Exactly. One thing I would say, our driver was great. One of the gals on our trip, her last name was O'Day because her husband is Irish. He found her, we went to Adare Manor. He's like, oh, by the way, let's just swing in here. And here's this like castle that is her family's castle. So a lot of people go to Ireland to look up their lineage, and they have a great museum in Dublin called the Epic Museum. It's like the Emigration Museum, and that was new from when I had last been there. But if you have any kind of Irish heritage, it's worth looking it up because you may have a castle there with your name on it.
That's so cool. I'm sure she got some great pictures in front of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Were you off to Killarney next? And
Hmm.
was this just a stop on your way to Kenmare?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. Because you don't like to drive too long. You like to make a nice stop along the way. So,
Yeah.
what made you want to stop in Killarney on your way to Kenmare?
Well, Killarney is just one of those quintessential Irish towns that kind of you need to go if you've never been. Kilkenny is another one that's quite popular. It's just charming and it's right on the edge of Killarney National Park. There's also the Ring of Kerry is right there, which we did not do. That's a sort of a 5 or 6 hour drive. But I wanted to take my group to Ross Castle. It's a 15th century tower house and keep on the edge of Loch Lean, means Lake Lean, in Killarney National Park. And I had been with my husband, and it's one of the best preserved tower houses in the whole country. These dotted, I mean, this is what people lived in originally, and it's sort of just a tall tower. And they were all over the Irish countryside, and you can see a lot of them in ruin when you're driving around. But this one is really well preserved, and they offer tours. Kids would really be interested in this, I think, because it gives you an idea of how the Irish used to live and how they used to defend themselves. I mean, there's like a murder hole, and they pour hot oil down on you.
Oh
You
my
tried to
gosh.
come in, and
So, is it like basically like a kind of narrow tower and they lived in it as well?
well, it's a tower, and then but there are rooms off. So the tower part is sort of the main stairwell, but then like on the first floor, you'll just step off the stairwell into a room. Maybe that's where everybody slept, like everybody.
Right.
And then you go up another floor, and that's like, maybe there's one more guest room in the kitchen, and then the top floor is where you would entertain neighboring lords. or you did your business because you were, if you had money, you were sort of looking over all the people who lived on your land, right? So they would come to you with petitions and, you'd have to try to solve disputes. And so all that would happen on sort of the more formal room upstairs.
And try not
But
to get stuck in the murder hole.
yeah. If you're nice, it's okay. But if you're coming to steal their cows, which is common, that's what they did. But anyway, yeah, I just fascinating piece of history.
So what was the one that you went to called again?
It's called Ross Castle,
Ross Castle.
ROSS. Yes,
Okay, cool.
Castle. And then from there in Killarney National Park, we got a horse and trap through the park, which is gorgeous. It's just really magical. I mean, the forests in Ireland are sort of magical. You do expect to see sort of like a fairy or something pop out from behind.
Like a little elf or
waterfalls. We went to Torque Waterfall. There's huge, big old sort of gnarled trees. But we went to Muckross Abbey, which is a 6th century monastery originally. It's still in pretty good shape. There's also Muckross House, which actually an American bought for his wife or built for his wife. We did not go in it, but it's very well preserved, and you can go in and have a tour. And that's something that might be fun.
So is this like a horse and carriage or like a horse and cart coach type thing?
Horse and cart / carriage. I mean, the
kind of like what you see in like the Downton Abbey shows where they're being pulled, but there's still kind of like an enclosure.
Yeah, but not that fancy.
Okay.
Not that fancy. Yeah. I mean, it's the same. It's sort of like a wagon with seats and a cover on it.
Okay.
The one at Adare Manor was very nice. You could have like afternoon tea or champagne or crudité while you're, taking a tour. This was a guy who was very young and a little rough around the edges and perfectly nice. But
so they'll take you around Killarney National Park to different sites.
Yeah. It's just a big park, and it's going to take you a long time to walk around and to get to the things you want to see. So it's kind of a fun way to do it.
Okay, so then you guys were off to Kenmare.
Yes, and that's not far away. And we stayed at the Park Hotel. And again, when I was designing the trip, I wanted to stay at Sheen Falls Lodge. I had a friend stay there years ago, and it's a beautiful lodge on Sheen Falls, and Sheen Falls is part of a river that opens up into Kenmare Bay. But when I was looking online, like the reviews weren't great, and I think it had just gotten a little tired. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to do that. So then I was looking around, and I found the Park Hotel, and it really is a fabulous spot. The owner actually has an amazing art collection. He's Irish, but he maybe lives in San Francisco, and he's back and forth, but he has an amazing art collection. And so every wall is adorned with this really eclectic art collection. So that's fun. There's a great bar, a wonderful piano player, and the restaurant there is excellent. So that was, we were happy. Oh, and the spa. There's a Samas spa, SAMAS, which came in handy because the day after we arrived, there was a code orange weather event, which I guess it goes green, yellow, orange, red in terms of storm and rain. And so literally it was bucketing down. The wind was howling, like we couldn't leave the hotel. So we just pivoted and decided we'd have a spa day. So a couple of gals had a yoga class, and then we all had massages. And actually by the afternoon, the skies cleared, and we could keep our reservation for tea at Sheen Falls Lodge, which was hilarious because the river was raging from this storm. We were like, we're sitting in this bay window thinking, I hope it doesn't come up, because it already swept a bench away. But, it's definitely a little tired. I will say the service was so-so, but, we were cozy inside eating our scones and having tea, and, so we were happy.
That sounds lovely. And I do like, since you do plan your trips around the properties, then when something happens like a weather event, you actually still are at a lovely place and you can have a wonderful day at the spa because you're at a fabulous hotel. It doesn't ruin your day.
No, 100%. Because we pivoted a little bit, our last morning there, before we got off, we went to Cromwell's Bridge and a fairy tree and a stone circle, Kenmare stone circle. That was another reason I wanted to go there. I'm a big Outlander fan. So I thought maybe I would go through the stones and find Jamie.
I don't know Outlander. What's the
Oh my gosh.
circle?
Okay. Well, if
Tell
your
us.
readers, I did a whole trip to Scotland and about Outlander, but that's another conversation. So Anyway, so we just pivoted. We did that the morning before we left, and that was great. And the best part was that literally the sky was full of rainbows. I mean, every time we turned to, like, there'd be a rainbow, and then 10 minutes later, there'd be a different rainbow. I mean, Ireland, really, it's true. There's just always rainbows, and especially after a weather event like that. So,
Wow, cool. Real quick,
yeah.
I looked up photos of the Park Hotel Kenmare. And again, it looks like another beautiful castle manor, so sophisticated. I'm sure I'm seeing the best photos of all on the website, but lots of beautiful fabrics and linens, which I feel like isn't what you see in, a traditional hotel where you're getting that like typical white, room, duvet. This was all like beautiful drapes and beautiful pillows. And that I just like made me feel like traditional luxury and like the old wooden bars. Everything about it felt very like sophisticated and traditional luxury.
For sure. And it's very homey. I mean, you do feel like you make friends with the concierge. They seem so happy to see you every time you return to the hotel. And there's a gorgeous living room where the piano is. So just, you just sort of grab a drink and sit down and it feels like your living room and someone's serenading you. And then they also have a movie theater, which is kind of fun because my friend and I watched The Quiet Man, it's a very dear to our hearts. It's a great movie if no one's seen it.
Real businesses like Malibu Apothecary rely on Spectrum to keep them connected.
We're a fragrance company, but we also have a lot of technology that we use. Spectrum is really the backbone of any of the business we do here. Having a reliable, fast internet service that can fit my budget is really great. I traded a 9 to 5 for a 5 to 9. It's a lot of work, but I love it.
Spectrum Business Internet starts at $40 a month when bundled. Learn more at spectrum.com/business. Restrictions apply. Services not available in all areas.
So next you are off to Cork, is that right? And I don't know about Cork.
Yes. So Cork is a city, more of a city than these other little towns we were visiting. And on the way, we stopped at Midleton Distillery for a Jameson whiskey tasting and tour, which was really fun. I mean, the history there is amazing, and the whiskey's good. We were kind of on an empty stomach, but it's quite strong. But you got to taste, different varieties, and then at the very end, you get a drink that they make you, and then they actually have a nice little restaurant there with quiche and salads, and so we had some lunch and then had some more drinks, and then so that was fun. And then we arrived at Hayfield Manor in Cork, which is just a lovely. Again, you just feel like these big old manor homes. It's a beautiful brick manor home right next to Cork University. And I typically I don't like to spend a ton of time in cities. I do if there are things that I want to see, but I don't find them as relaxing. So, for sure we were going to Dublin. And Cork was a little bit bigger, but there were just a couple of things I wanted to see there. And then also it was near Blarney Castle. So, if you're going to visit the Blarney Stone and Blarney Castle, you need to be in that area. We visited Finbarr's Cathedral and Cork's English Market. That's one other thing I wanted to see. It's sort of like Faneuil Hall in Boston, but on a much smaller scale, but just lots of different stalls and people selling all sorts of amazing food, which was fun. And then we had a private tour of Blarney Castle and Gardens. And of course, we all kissed the Blarney Stone. But again, when I first kissed the Blarney Stone, I was 10. So that was 44 years ago. And there was just nobody there. We literally, my mom and I walked up and hung over the edge and kissed it, and on we went. And the lines, now are really long. Fortunately, we had our private guide, and so he was just able to talk to us the whole time that we were in line.
Remind us of the tradition of the Blarney Stone and why you kiss it.
It's supposed to be good luck, and it gives you the gift of the gab, which clearly I may not need, or maybe I have it because I kissed it when I was 10. Who knows? But, it's not for the faint of heart. You have to lie on your back and kind of lean out over the edge of the castle, and they do have bars that you can hold on to. So you're sort of like in a back bend, and then but you want to kiss the bottom of the stone. That's where the Blarney Stone is. And so you have to sort of lean back. But there's a guy there who's holding you. And
how funny. I wasn't envisioning the back bend portion of it.
Oh, yeah.
I was just
you're dangling over. There are a few bars below, but you are dangling over the edge. But anyway, I think it's totally worth it. And the gardens are really gorgeous. I hadn't spent as much time there last time. As I said, we kind of drove up and drove out. But the gardens are really pretty. And, the history is really interesting. So that was super fun. And then we had dinner at the hotel, and day 8 we headed out for the Rock of Cashel. And I just looked this up. Cashel actually means stone fortress, because when we were there, the oldest documented people, I guess, living there was in the fourth century. But even like b before Christianity, they think that people were living on this basically limestone like outcrop. And there's a cathedral built there. And so we had a wonderful tour there. And it's maybe it's the third time I've been there actually. And it's just a really special place. There's something about it that just I don't know, it's beautiful, it's spiritual, it's up very high, and so you have an amazing view of the valley. And I just make sure that I go every time. And I was super happy that the lunch place we originally had planned on was closed, because I discovered, and this is what I love about traveling, the Cashel Palace Hotel. So there's a great hotel. I don't know if it's 5 star. It felt 5 star, maybe 4 or 5 star, right in Cashel. So if you want to go and stay there, we had an amazing lunch, definitely some fine dining, and their living room is gorgeous. Talk about fabrics, and like you just want to kind of move in, and like floor to ceiling portraits and paintings, and just so stylish. I loved it. And from there, we went to the Irish National Stud and Japanese Gardens. So, horse racing is huge in Ireland, and a lot of really famous horses were born there and bred there, because they're known for their speed and athleticism. And part of it's genetics and part of it's breeding practices, but also the Irish soil is really rich in limestone, which provides calcium for their bones. So it grows, well, the limestone provides calcium-rich grass, I should say, right, which grows strong bones. So that's why Irish racehorses are so famous.
Well,
And
and they have the luck of the Irish with them as well.
well,
So,
there's that, of course. But we had a private guy there who went through all the breeding practices, which were really fascinating, and how they stud. But they also have this beautiful Japanese garden that is definitely worth seeing. So that was pretty. And again, so that whole day, the Rock of Cashel and Irish National Stud and Japanese Gardens was en route to Dublin.
perfect. I love that you find all these places to stop along the way to make your trip so interesting. And then you're just probably doesn't even really feel like you're driving when you're just trying to get to each of these shorter destinations before your final one.
Exactly. And in Ireland, it's really easy because nothing's too far apart.
Yeah, perfect. So then you wrap up your trip in Dublin and you stay at the Shelbourne, which is actually a Marriott property. So for people listening that do like to play the points and miles game, this is one that could potentially be booked on points.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the nicest hotel, certainly the most infamous hotel in Dublin. People who have stayed there, the likes of JFK, Elizabeth Taylor, Grace Kelly, Charlie Chaplin, Michelle Obama, the Rolling Stones. I mean, sort of everybody has walked its hallowed halls. And
Tell us about the hotel.
it's on St. Stephen's Green. It was built in 1804. It's just sort of a classic old hotel, but very nicely appointed and very well done. St. Stephen's Green is a beautiful little green and a little square. There are a bunch of hotels, really nice hotels around there. My father was actually born like a few blocks from there.
Wow.
Troy Street. I love that little green. There's a duck pond. It's just really sweet. And it's easy to walk from there. So for example, the next day we went on a tour of Trinity College and the Book of Kells experience. And it's like a 10 or 15-minute walk. So any hotel on St. Stephen's Green is going to be an easy walk to wherever you want to be. And as I said, it was interesting because the long room, so if you look up the Dublin Library, it's called the Long Room, and it's sort of like floor to ceiling bookshelves. And this was luckily the second time I'd been there, but most of the books were off the shelves because they're doing this restoration project where they're taking all the books off and cleaning them. But they also are actually closing the long room. And I'm surprised it's not closed yet because our guide said that it was imminent. But basically, the weight of all those books and shelves and all the people traipsing throughout all the years has compromised the structure. So they have to take everything out, close it down. They say 2 or 3 years. Our guide was like, yeah, that's going to be more like 4 to make sure that it's, safe to be in and can hold all those books. The good news is the Book of Kells, which is an illuminated manuscript that was written by monks centuries ago, is actually being moved into another building where the Book of Kells experiences. And that experience is new. That wasn't there the last time I was there. It's an immersive digital experience, which I think kids would like. It's pretty interactive and fun. So
How do you spell the book of what? How are you the second?
Kells, Kells. That's
Okay,
like the
that's like
most.
my nickname, Kels. I'm like, I feel
Really?
like I
Oh,
need to,
that's so funny. That's
well, like,
right. For
I mean,
Kelsey.
people call me Kels, Kels, and I'm like, do I need to read this inspired book? I feel like I might.
Well, it's just an illuminated manuscript. So it's in a case. It's very protected. The light is dim.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
but there's a whole history behind it. And like it was lost and then it was recovered. And, it's interesting. Nobody may be interested in this, but I think it's really interesting. During the Dark Ages in Europe, a lot of the manuscripts and a lot of the sacred texts were sent to Ireland, or the monks got them and brought them to Ireland. So Ireland was called the land of scholars and saints because it really preserved all this knowledge. While, during the Dark Ages, libraries were being burnt, manuscripts were being burnt, all sorts of information was and buildings and, architecture were being destroyed. In Ireland, they were hiding it all. The
Wow.
monks especially were hiding it all so that, we have all these scholars and saints to thank for preserving all this history.
That's so fascinating. I'm going to be looking that up after this.
So then after that, we went to lunch and then we visited St. Patrick's Cathedral and then went to the Guinness storehouse where we had a Guinness connoisseur tasting, which meant that we tried a lot of different Guinnesses. And I never really knew I liked Guinness, but I was
How
very
many
happy.
different Guinnesses are there? I just know of the one
Oh,
big one that you crack and then it, has the
oh
foam
no.
on top.
There's like there's dark ones and light ones, and there are ones for different markets. I mean, they do Americans, I can't remember, but Americans like a different taste than the
Yeah.
Brits,
I
than
clearly
this
only know
one.
the American one. So,
Yeah, exactly. And then we learned to pour the perfect pint, which was fun. And then that night we had our farewell dinner at the Church Cafe Bar. And I really recommend this because I was determined to find some Irish dancing and Irish music. And they have that every night at 6:30. First of all, they have a great cocktail list, which is fun. But make sure you request a table near the dancers. And it's sort of a timed thing because they have a couple of seatings. But I think kids would like that. We went on the early side, because it starts at 6:30. You can have dinner, and then they'll play music, and then they'll dance, and then play music and dance, sort of alternate. But it was a great find, and actually Arthur Guinness got married there, so there was sort of a
oh,
connection
wow,
with our
cool.
Guinness tasting.
I love it.
In addition to these locations, because I've been there several times, there are a couple of others that your listeners might be interested in.
Yes, let's hear it.
One very famous property is Ashford Castle, and actually was the family home of the Guinness family for a long time. And it's in Cong, so in the west of Ireland, and it's on Loch Corrib, which is a beautiful lake. I mean, a lot of these homes were built on these gorgeous lakes, and there's actually an island called Inchigoil Island, and you can take a little boat out. When we went, there was the little old man with an accordion, and he was singing all these songs. The Quiet Man was actually filmed there with, I think it's Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne, maybe. Anyway, but he remembered meeting them. But there's a monastery out there that is really interesting, and there's a gravestone of St. Patrick's cousin. I mean, things are so old, your mind just sort of gets blown. It's hard to like really. And, oh, St. Patrick was walking around here. So that's a great one. And like Adare, that has falconry. That's where we did our falconry. That actually has horseback riding. I did that when I was there. They have stables on site. They have archery, so things that kids might enjoy. They have a full suit of armor in the foyer, which I'm sure children would love, and some great restaurants.
This is how flying should be. That's what a Breeze guest recently said about Breeze Airways. Breeze flies nonstop to Sarasota and more, straight from Long Island MacArthur Airport. Breeze not only makes travel easy and affordable, but they offer flexible and friendly change policies, have high-speed Wi-Fi, and a premium first-class seat called Breeze Ascent. It's time you choose to fly Breeze. What are you waiting for? Book your flight today at flybreeze.com. Breeze Airways, seriously nice. In partnership with Visit Sarasota County.
And then Dromoland Castle. So Dromoland Castle is sort of between Adare Manor and Ashford Castle. So they're all sort of near each other. That's a fabulous castle. Great place to stay, beautiful grounds. And then the K Club, if you like golf, that's a great spot to stay. And it's, again, all these properties are sort of expansive and have lots of land. So if you have kids, you can ride bikes. And the nice thing about that is that's in County Kildare, where the stud farm is. So you can stay there and go visit the stud farm and go visit the gardens. And there are actually some outlets. There's some great outlets near there as well. And that's not
Like
very far
outlet
from us.
shopping?
Outlets shopping.
Oh, how funny. I wasn't
I mean,
expecting that.
I know. Well, that's where we stayed. So my father, his parents were born in Clare in County Offaly, and so when we took his ashes back, we stayed at the K Club and did a little shopping. And
What
it's
kind of
really
outlet shopping do you get in Ireland?
well, like I don't know, I bought a pair of shoes there, and then Barber. There's like a great Barber. I mean, I love Barber jackets. I live in the Hunt Country in Virginia, but so they're pretty popular here. But it was a great outlet, and then just fashion brands,
Yeah,
high-end fashion stuff.
cool.
So,
Well, thank you for the insight on those properties.
sure.
You had said if you had to describe this trip in one word, you would say magical. So, what is it about Ireland that's so magical?
It's like you can't even put your finger on it. I think it's the people. I think it's the weather. It's a very temperate climate, which means that, it never gets super hot. It never gets super cold, and there's lots of rain. So it's so green. It's almost like an unreal color of green. So it just seems, and then there are rainbows everywhere. I mean, what's not magical about that? I don't know.
Yeah, and leprechauns probably at the end of all the rainbows.
Exactly. Pots of gold, maybe. You never know. Thank you.
Okay, Martha. Well, it's always sad to leave a country and to leave Ireland, but we'll end this episode with the same question I end every episode with, which is if someone out there is considering this trip, what is it about Ireland that would make you say, just book it?
Well, I think just going back to what I've said like a million times is just the hospitality. You're going to feel welcome. People are going to help you if you're lost. It's a small country, so it's easy to get around. You're not going to spend a lot of time in the car. I will say, this is my one caveat, the roads are narrow. We popped a tire on our way. We rolled into Ashford Castle with a flat tire, and of course, 5-star, they fixed it over a holiday weekend. But it's a little bit intimidating. You have these huge lorries coming down and these little rock walls on either side. So my advice is, if somebody wants to drive, great, or just hire a driver because you're going to save yourself a lot of stress and heartache.
Well, thank you for all of this amazing information and tell people where they can find you online if they're interested in these trips that you're planning and if they just want a little bit more Martha in their life.
Yeah, of course. So I am at the Next Chapter Travel on Instagram, and then my website is www.thenextchaptertravel.com. And I actually leave for Portugal. I'm leading a group of women to Portugal on Friday. We're going to Sintra, Porto, and Lisbon. And then I have 2 trips in October. It's called Italy in Vogue, and we're going to Lake Como, Portofino/Cinque Terre. We'll have a private boat charter take us down to Cinque Terre, and then we'll go to Milan. And then I have a tennis trip in the end of October where it's called Courts and Culture in Chianti, and we'll play tennis in the morning and have tennis instruction with Italian pros and then sightsee in the afternoon. That filled up in 2 weeks, so I'm thinking I will include that again next year. And then Christmas Magic in the Rhine Valley, which is December 11th through December 18th, which is going to be super fun. It's all of these little magical Christmas markets. We stay at this renovated German palace, so there's no moving around, and then we're in a different Christmas market every day. And so I'm really excited for that. If anyone wants to join us, let me know.
That one sounds like a dream. I know Christmas markets are so hot right now, so that one's still available for people to jump on.
That one and the Italy in Vogue, we still have some spots for that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I'll have to go go to
come
Lake
with
Como
me.
with you.
That would be marvelous.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This was fascinating. I loved learning so much about Ireland from someone who has dual citizenship and about your awesome company. So thank you for being here today.
Kelsey, thank you so much. It was such an honor. I really appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode of Trip Tales. If you have a trip you'd like to share about on the podcast, email me at triptalespodcast@gmail.com and I'll add you to the schedule. Also, be sure to follow the show so that you don't miss any upcoming vacation destinations. And if you have an extra minute in your day, please leave a review for the podcast. It helps more than you could imagine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trip Tales.